Jake Morrison kicked a small rock down the dusty street as he walked home from school. The 12-year-old boy carried his backpack loosely over one shoulder and held his datapad in his free hand. New Texas Colony always felt quiet in the late afternoon when the twin suns hung low in the orange sky. Most adults were still at work in the mines or the spaceport. The sound of heavy boots on gravel made Jake look up. 3 tall figures in dark blue uniforms blocked the street ahead of him, Zarkan soldiers. Jake had seen them around the colony for the past few months, but had never been this close to them before. Their blue skin looked almost purple in the fading light, and their yellow eyes seemed to glow. The largest Zarkan stepped forward. Metal badges on his chest showed he was some kind of leader. His voice was deep and rough when he spoke. "Human child, stop where you are." Jake stopped walking but did not move closer. His teacher had warned all the students to be polite to the Zarkan troops, but to never volunteer information. "Yes, sir," Jake said quietly. "You will show us what you carry," the Zarkan said. He pointed at Jake's backpack and datapad. "The colonial agreement requires all humans to cooperate with security inspections." Jake shifted his weight from one foot to the other. He knew the colonial administrator had signed some papers with the Zarkans, but nobody had told him he needed to show his homework to alien soldiers. "It's just school stuff," he said. The Zarkan leader took 2 steps closer. His yellow eyes narrowed, and Jake could smell something like burned metal coming from the alien's breath. "I did not ask what it contains. I ordered you to show us." The other 2 Zarkans spread out to Jake's left and right. They all carried weapons on their belts that looked much more advanced than anything the human colonists had. Jake's heart started beating faster, but he tried to stay calm like his father had taught him. "My dad says I should not give my school things to strangers," Jake said. He took a small step backward. The Zarkan leader made a harsh sound that might have been laughter. "Your father is not here now. You will obey or face consequences." Jake clutched his datapad tighter against his chest. It contained his history. Report about Earth's military conflicts. His teacher had assigned everyone to write about their home planet's past. Jake had written about famous American soldiers and battles. He did not want these aliens reading about human military tactics. "Please, sir, it's just homework about old Earth history." "Nothing important," Jake said. The Zarkan's face changed. His yellow eyes became brighter and the skin around them darkened. "Earth military history?" His voice became louder. "You study human warfare?" Jake realized he had made a mistake. The tension in the air became thick and dangerous. "Just old stuff from hundreds of years ago," he said quickly. "For school." But the Zarkan leader was already reaching for Jake's datapad. "Give it now or we will take it." Jake pulled the device away from the alien's blue hand. "No, it's mine." The Zarkan's hand moved faster than Jake expected. Sharp fingernails raked across the boy's cheek and Jake cried out in pain. Warm blood ran down his face. The datapad fell to the ground. "You dare refuse a direct order?" the Zarkan shouted. "Human. Children will learn respect for their betters." Jake touched his bleeding cheek and stared at the alien in shock. Nobody had ever hit him before. Fear and anger mixed together in his chest. Instead of picking up the datapad, he turned and ran. The Zarkans shouted behind him. Jake heard the whine of energy weapons charging up. He zigzagged between buildings as blue bolts of stunner fire lit up the street around him. The aliens were trying to capture him alive, but Jake did not want to find out what they would do. If they caught him, his legs burned as he ran through the narrow alleys between the colony's prefab houses. The Zarkans were bigger and stronger, but Jake knew every shortcut in town. He squeezed through gaps between buildings and jumped over small fences. More energy bolts scorched the walls near his head. Jake's house sat on the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to empty fields. He burst through the front door and slammed it shut behind him. His hands shook as he turned the lock. Blood from his cheek had dripped onto his school shirt. "Jake?" His father's voice came from the kitchen. "You're home early." Sam Morrison appeared in the doorway holding a cup of coffee. He was a thin man with graying hair and calloused hands from his work at the spaceport. When he saw the blood on his son's face, his expression changed completely. The coffee cup hit the floor and shattered. "What happened?" Sam's voice became very quiet and very cold. Jake told his father everything while Sam cleaned the cuts on his face. The man's hands were gentle, but Jake could see something dangerous in his father's eyes. When Jake finished talking, Sam sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Dad?" Jake said. "Are you okay?" Sam looked at his son and managed a small smile. "I'm fine. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes bad people do bad things and there's no explaining it." An hour later, someone knocked on their door. Sam opened it to find Patricia Wells, the colonial administrator, and the same Zarkin who had attacked Jake. The alien's yellow eyes found Jake hiding behind his father, and the creature made that harsh laughing sound again. "Mr. Morrison," Patricia said quickly, "I'm sorry about this misunderstanding. Sergeant Vexcole was conducting a routine security check, and there seems to have been some confusion." Sam looked at the Zarkin called Vexcole. "Confusion," he repeated. Vexcole stepped forward. The human child refused lawful orders and became violent. "We showed restraint by not arresting him." Jake started to protest, but his father put a hand on his shoulder. Sam's grip was firm but not painful. "A warning to stay quiet." "I see," Sam said. "And what do you want from me?" Patricia pulled out a datapad of her own. "The Zarkin Imperial Forces are willing to overlook this incident in exchange for a small compensation payment and your agreement not to pursue legal action. It's really the best solution for everyone." Sam read the document carefully while Vexcole stared at Jake with those glowing yellow eyes. Finally, Sam picked up a pen and signed his name at the bottom. "Excellent," Patricia said with relief. "I'm sure there won't be any more problems." After they left, Sam locked the door and activated the house's privacy screen. Then he went to his bedroom and made a phone call on an old communication device Jake had never seen before. His father spoke in code words Jake did not understand to someone called Carlos. When Sam came back to the living room, he knelt down in front of his son. "Jake," he said, "I need you to stay home from school for a few days. Can you do that for me?" Jake nodded. There was something different about his father now. Something that made the air in the room feel charged like before a thunderstorm. "Good," Sam said. "And Jake? That Zarkin who hurt you? He's going to be very sorry he ever came to our planet." 20 years ago, Sam Morrison had a different name. The galaxy knew him as Ghost. Enemy soldiers whispered stories about him in the dark corners of military bases across 3 star systems. They said he could walk through walls and kill without making a sound. They said he could read minds and predict enemy movements before they happened. Most of the stories were lies, but enough were true to make Ghost the most feared human in known space. Carlos Bennett received Sam's coded message at his shipping office on Titan Station. The older man stared at his communication device for a full minute before his hands started shaking. Ghost was calling in old debts, and Carlos knew exactly what that meant. Someone had made a terrible mistake. Carlos immediately sent encrypted messages to 7 other former Special Operations soldiers scattered across the sector. The message was simple. Ghost needed them, and that meant everything else in their lives could wait. Within 6 hours, 3 of them had already booked passage on the next ships to New Texas colony. Sam spent the morning at his regular job maintaining atmospheric processors at the spaceport. To anyone watching, he looked like the same quiet technician who had worked there for 15 years. But his movements were different now, more precise. His eyes noted every security camera and guard patrol. He memorized the shift schedules and identified weak points in the perimeter fence. During his lunch break, Sam walked to an empty field outside town. He counted steps from a dead tree to a large rock and then began digging with a small shovel. 3 feet down, he found a sealed metal container he had buried the day he decided to retire from military service. Inside were weapons and equipment that officially did not exist. The Zarkin base sat on a hill overlooking New Texas colony. General Vex Prime commanded 200 soldiers and enough firepower to level the entire settlement if needed. The general was proud of his posting because it meant the Zarkin Imperial Navy trusted him with an important frontier position. Earth's colonies were expanding rapidly and someone needed to keep watch on. Human activities. That afternoon, the first technical problems began. A security camera in Sector 7 developed a blind spot. A communication relay started dropping random transmissions. The main computer reported minor glitches in patrol scheduling software. The base technicians ran diagnostics but found nothing wrong with any of the equipment. Sam returned home before sunset and cooked dinner for Jake. They ate quietly while watching the news on their old video screen. The Colonial Broadcasting Service reported increased Zarkan patrols and urged all citizens to carry proper identification. Sam listened carefully to every word while planning his next moves after Jake went to bed. Sam activated surveillance equipment hidden throughout his house. The devices had been installed years ago when he first moved to New Texas. They would record everything that happened in his absence and transmit the data to secure servers in 3 different star systems. If something happened to Sam, the recordings would automatically be sent to Earth military intelligence. Maria Santos arrived on New Texas the next morning aboard a civilian transport. Her identification papers listed her occupation as Colonial Inspector for the Regional Development Authority. In reality, she had once been Ghost's communications specialist and the best electronic warfare operator in Earth's Special Forces. Her job was to gather intelligence on Zarkan base operations. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes landed 4 hours later on a commercial freight hauler. His cover identity was Orbital Traffic Control Supervisor. Ryan had flown stealth fighters in the war against the Hegemony pirates and could pilot any spacecraft ever built. He would handle aerial reconnaissance and provide extraction routes. If the mission went bad, Sam met both of them at a small cafe in town. To anyone watching, they looked like old friends catching up over coffee. They spoke about weather and local news while passing coded information through seemingly innocent conversation. Maria reported that Zarkan communications used standard Imperial encryption, which she could break given enough time. Ryan confirmed that the alien base had only basic orbital defenses and no fighter squadron. That evening, 3 more Zarkan soldiers reported equipment malfunctions. Their helmet displays flickered randomly during night patrol. Their weapons showed false charge readings. Their radio communications filled with static at crucial moments. The base commander ordered a complete systems check, but the technicians found no problems with any of the gear. Sergeant Vex Cole began having nightmares. He dreamed of human soldiers with painted faces emerging from shadows to drag him away. He woke up screaming 3 nights in a row. His fellow soldiers started avoiding him because Zarkan culture viewed nightmares as signs of mental weakness. Vex Cole requested transfer to another base, but General Vex Prime denied the application. Stum studied intelligence reports Maria had gathered by hacking civilian communication networks. The Zarkan force consisted of regular infantry with basic training and standard equipment. They relied on superior technology and numerical advantage to control human populations. None of them had experience fighting professional human military units. This would make Sam's job much easier. Jake asked his father why he had to stay home from school. Sam explained that sometimes adults made decisions that affected children and it was better to be safe until things settled down. Jake accepted this explanation but noticed his father spent long hours in the garage working on projects he would not discuss. Dr. Kate Murphy arrived on the weekly medical supply transport. Her paperwork identified her as a replacement physician for the colony's health clinic. Actually, she was a combat medic who had served with Ghost's unit during the siege of Proxima Base. Kate would provide medical support and help identify Zarkan biological weaknesses that could be exploited later. The psychological pressure on the Zarkan garrison increased daily. Soldiers reported feeling watched during routine duties. Equipment failures multiplied despite constant maintenance. Strange noises echoed through the base at night when no humans should have been anywhere nearby. Some guards claimed to see movement in their peripheral vision but found nothing when they investigated. General Vex Prime called a meeting of his senior officers. He demanded explanations for the declining morale and increasing technical problems. When no one could provide satisfactory answers, the general ordered increased security patrols and threatened disciplinary action for any more equipment failures. This created additional stress among troops who were already on edge. Sam activated Sleeper protocols buried in the Zarkan computer systems. Military programmers had installed the hidden code and captured alien equipment years before and distributed it through normal maintenance updates. The code remained dormant until triggered by specific command sequences only Ghost knew. Once active, it would gradually corrupt data systems and create false sensor readings. By the end of the week, half the Zarkan garrison reported sleep disorders. Soldiers jumped at unexpected sounds and showed signs of paranoia during routine briefings. Equipment failures occurred daily despite replacement parts flown in from Imperial supply depots. The base commander considered requesting reinforcements, but that would require admitting his forces could not handle a simple colonial pacification mission. Jake noticed his father had started carrying different tools to work. Instead of the usual maintenance equipment, Sam now brought items that looked more like weapons. When Jake asked about them, Sam explained they were specialized instruments for working on advanced systems. The boy accepted this, but began to suspect his quiet father had secrets he did not share. Carlos Bennett's freighter entered New Texas orbit carrying legitimate agricultural supplies, and 3 more former Special Operations soldiers. Tony Clark had been Ghost's demolitions expert and could make explosives from common household chemicals. Danny White was a sniper capable of hitting targets at impossible distances. Lisa Brown specialized in infiltration and could move through enemy positions. Without being detected, the team was complete. Ghost had his people in position and enough intelligence to begin active operations. The Zarkan base was isolated and demoralized. Local authorities would not interfere as long as civilian casualties remained minimal. Everything was ready for the next phase of the mission. Sam kissed Jake goodnight and tucked him into bed. Tomorrow would bring changes their quiet colony world had never seen before. The maintenance technician named Sam Morrison would disappear, and in his place would stand the legendary operative who had once made alien warlords afraid to leave their bunkers. Ghost was coming back, and someone was going to pay for hurting his son. The first Zarkan soldier disappeared during routine morning patrol. Private Hexmar was walking the perimeter fence when his partner turned around and found empty air where the young alien had been standing moments before. No sounds of struggle. No weapon discharge, no distress signal. Hexmar simply vanished. Security teams found him 4 hours later unconscious behind the colony's water treatment plant. He was stripped of weapons, armor, and communication gear, but otherwise unharmed. Strange symbols had been carved into his helmet with precise cuts that must have taken considerable time. When Hexmar regained consciousness, he remembered nothing about his disappearance. The only clue was a message scratched into his chest plate in perfect Zarkan script. The boy remembers. General Dex Prime reviewed the security footage personally. The cameras showed Hexmar walking his assigned route and then displayed 4 minutes of static interference. When the signal cleared, the soldier was gone. Technical analysis revealed no evidence of tampering with the recording equipment. Someone had made a trained Zarkan warrior disappear using technology that should not exist on a primitive frontier world. Sam Morrison reported to his maintenance job at the usual time. He spent the morning servicing atmospheric processors and checking power grid connections. His supervisor noticed nothing unusual about the quiet technician's behavior. Sam completed his assigned tasks efficiently and left no evidence of the previous night's activities. The specialized training never left him even after 15 years of retirement. Maria Santos established herself in a small office downtown and began her cover work as a colonial inspector. She interviewed local business owners about infrastructure needs while secretly mapping the Zarkan base's electronic systems. Every conversation provided intelligence about alien patrol routes and communication protocols. The friendly inspector, asking routine questions, was actually gathering target data for precision strikes. 2 more Zarkan soldiers vanished over the next 3 days. Each time the pattern remained identical. A soldier would be alone for a brief moment during standard duties and then disappear without trace. Hours later, search teams would find them unconscious and stripped of equipment with no memory of what happened. The messages carved into their gear became more specific. His blood still stains the ground, and Justice comes for those who harm children. The psychological impact spread through the Zarkin garrison like a plague. Soldiers began refusing assignments that required them to patrol alone. Equipment checks became obsessive rituals as troops searched for hidden messages. Sleep disorders multiplied as fear replaced military discipline. Veterans who had fought in 3 stellar wars found themselves jumping at shadows cast by New Texas Colony's twin sons. Sergeant Vexcol requested transfer to any other posting in the galaxy. His nightmares had evolved into waking hallucinations, where human faces appeared in reflections in corners. The sergeant who had struck a 12-year-old boy now shook uncontrollably during routine briefings. General Vex Prime denied the transfer request and ordered the sergeant to undergo psychological evaluation. Ryan Hayes used his position with orbital traffic control to monitor all spacecraft entering the New Texas system. His security clearance allowed access to Imperial Navy communication frequencies. Ryan identified the scheduled arrival of supply ships and reinforcement transports. This intelligence would let Ghost's team know exactly when the enemy might receive additional support. The base's senior medical officer reported a 50% increase in stress-related illness among the troops. Soldiers complained of constant fatigue, loss of appetite, and inability to concentrate on simple tasks. Many requested medication for anxiety disorders that had never affected them before. The doctor recommended immediate evacuation of personnel. Showing severe symptoms, but General Vex Prime refused to admit his forces were compromised. Sam worked late into the night in his garage, converting civilian equipment into military-grade weapons. His neighbors assumed the maintenance technician was building electronic devices for his home. They could not have imagined he was assembling surveillance gear and communication jammers based on classified designs from his special operations. Every tool had multiple purposes and none would raise suspicion if discovered by casual inspection. Murphy treated minor injuries at the Colony Health Clinic while secretly analyzing Zarkin physiology. The alien soldiers who came for medical attention provided valuable intelligence about their species' biological weaknesses. Kate noted their sensitivity to certain sound frequencies and their vulnerability to specific chemical compounds that were harmless to humans. This information would prove useful if the situation escalated to direct combat. The alien base commander ordered installation of additional security cameras and motion sensors around the perimeter. Within hours of activation, every new device experienced electronic interference that rendered them useless. The jamming signals appeared to come from civilian broadcasting equipment in town, but technical analysis could not identify the exact source. Someone was using the colony's own communication infrastructure against the occupying forces. Jake Morrison noticed his father had become more attentive to details around their house. Sam checked door locks multiple times each evening and spent long periods staring out windows at the surrounding landscape. When Jake asked about this behavior, Sam explained he was being cautious because of recent troubles with the alien soldiers. The boy accepted this explanation but began to understand his father was preparing for something dangerous. Danny White established a position in the hills overlooking the Zarkin base. The former sniper used hunting equipment and camping gear to create an observation post that looked like a nature photographer's blind. His high-powered telescope provided detailed intelligence about guard rotations and defensive positions. Danny could eliminate key targets from extreme range if circumstances required immediate action. Vexcol suffered a complete psychological breakdown after finding his personal quarters filled with images of human military victories throughout history. Photos of famous battles covered every wall. Maps of successful campaigns replaced his furniture. A detailed psychological profile written in perfect Zarkin script sat on his desk describing his childhood fears and personal insecurities. The message was unmistakable. Someone knew everything about him and could reach him anywhere. The sergeant was found hours later in a maintenance closet rocking back and forth while repeating "The ghost knows my name" in his native language. Medical staff sedated him and placed him under constant supervision. Word of his condition spread through the base faster than official reports. Hardened soldiers who had respected Vexcol's combat record now whispered that something inhuman was hunting their unit. General Vex Prime called for reinforcements from Imperial Fleet Command. His request detailed equipment failures, personnel disorders, and suspected human resistance activities. The response came 12 hours later. No. Additional forces could be spared for colonial security duties. The general would have to solve his problems with existing resources or face disciplinary action for inability to maintain order on a pacified world. Tony Clark used his demolitions expertise to create small explosive devices disguised as everyday objects, a coffee cup that could breach armored doors, a data pad that generated electromagnetic pulses, a maintenance tool that produced shaped charges. Each device was small enough to conceal and powerful enough to cause significant damage when properly deployed. Lisa Brown infiltrated the alien base during shift changes when security attention was focused elsewhere. She moved through the facility like a shadow, planting surveillance devices and identifying structural weaknesses. The information she gathered would allow Ghost's team to strike at the most vulnerable points when they were ready to transition from psychological warfare to direct action. The Zarkan communication network experienced increasing interference as Maria's electronic warfare systems came online. Military frequencies filled with static at random intervals. Command messages arrived hours late or not at all. Patrol coordination became impossible when radio systems failed during critical moments. The base's isolation from Imperial support networks was now nearly complete. Sam Morrison tucked his son into bed and promised everything would be better soon. Jake asked if the alien soldiers would leave their planet. Sam smiled and said some visitors eventually realized they were not welcome and chose to go home. The boy fell asleep feeling safer than he had since the attack. He did not know his father was about to make sure the aliens understood exactly how unwelcome they were. Ghost stood in his garage, surrounded by the tools of his former profession. Tomorrow would bring the end of psychological operations and the beginning of direct action. The Zarkan garrison was demoralized and isolated. Their commanding officer was desperate and making poor decisions. Local authorities would not interfere with justice being served. All the pieces were in position for the final phase of the mission. Someone had hurt his child, and that meant war. The Zarkan communication array exploded at exactly 3 a.m. during Sam Morrison's scheduled maintenance shift. The blast appeared to be an accident caused by power surge feedback through aging equipment that had been operating beyond safe parameters. The maintenance technician on duty was knocked unconscious by flying debris, but survived with minor injuries. Investigation would later reveal that someone had modified the safety protocols to create a cascading system failure. General Vex Prime lost all contact with Imperial Fleet Command and regional bases. Emergency backup systems activated automatically, but they could only support basic internal communications within the alien compound. The general realized his forces were now completely isolated on New Texas colony, with no way to request assistance or report their situation to higher authorities. This was exactly what Ghost had intended. Maria Santos completed her infiltration of the Colonial Administrative Computer Network. Her inspector credentials gave her legitimate access to government databases that contained detailed records of Zarkan activities on the planet. The files revealed evidence of illegal weapons testing, unauthorized biological experiments, and systematic intimidation of civilian populations. This information would prove invaluable if the situation required political pressure from Earth. Ryan Hayes used his traffic control position to redirect 3 civilian cargo ships away from New Texas orbital space. The vessels carried routine supplies, but their presence would complicate any aerial operations Ghost might need to conduct. Ryan also disabled the automated distress beacons that would normally alert passing ships if the colony experienced emergency situations. New Texas was now as isolated as the Zarkan base. Jake Morrison asked his father why alien soldiers had stopped patrolling through town. Sam explained that the aliens were probably busy with maintenance work on their equipment and would likely stay closer to their base for the next few days. This was technically true since the Zarkan forces had pulled back to defensive positions after losing their ability to communicate with the outside galaxy. The first direct strike came during the evening shift change when Zarkan guards were most vulnerable to distraction. Tony Clark's explosive device destroyed the main power generator while Lisa Brown disabled backup systems throughout the alien compound. The base went dark for 47 minutes before emergency lighting restored minimal visibility. During those crucial minutes, 3 guard posts were abandoned and never properly secured again. Danny White eliminated 2 perimeter sensors with precision shots from his concealed position in the hills. The destruction looked like equipment failure caused by the power outage rather than deliberate sabotage. Without these sensors, the Zarkan forces could not monitor the eastern approach to their facility. This created a blind spot that Ghost's team would exploit during future operations. Kate Murphy received an emergency call to treat injured Zarkan soldiers at the base medical facility. She used this opportunity to plant surveillance devices throughout the alien compound while providing legitimate medical care. The hidden cameras and listening devices would give Ghost real-time intelligence about enemy movements and defensive preparations. Kate also confirmed that several aliens showed signs of severe psychological stress that would affect their combat effectiveness. General Vex Prime ordered his remaining forces to conduct house-to-house searches throughout New Texas Colony. The general believed human resistance fighters were hiding weapons and planning coordinated attacks against his troops. This decision revealed the alien commander's growing desperation and poor understanding of the situation he faced. Ghost was not hiding among the colonists because Ghost was everywhere and nowhere at once. The search teams discovered nothing useful during their aggressive sweep through town. Colonial citizens cooperated fully with the aliens while secretly recording every interaction using devices Maria had distributed through her inspector network. The recordings showed clear evidence of harassment, property damage, and violation of colonial treaty agreements. This documentation would become crucial evidence in later legal proceedings. Sam Morrison volunteered to guide Zarkan soldiers through the industrial section of town since his maintenance work gave him detailed knowledge of the area. He led them through a carefully planned route that avoided all surveillance devices Ghost had installed while exposing the search teams to maximum observation from his hidden cameras. The aliens learned nothing about resistance activities but revealed their own tactical procedures and unit organization. Vex Cole remained under medical supervision, but his condition continued deteriorating. The sergeant experienced violent hallucinations where human soldiers emerged from shadows to drag him away for judgment. Other patients in the medical facility reported that Vex Cole screamed about the ghost who knows everything during his few moments of sleep. His breakdown was becoming a visible symbol of the Zarkan force's psychological collapse. The alien base suffered another major systems failure when their water purification plant stopped working properly. Technical analysis suggested the breakdown was caused by computer viruses that had corrupted the facility's environmental controls. Without clean water, the Zarkan garrison would be forced to rely on emergency supplies that would last less than 2 weeks. This created additional pressure on General Vex Prime to resolve the situation quickly. Carlos Bennett's freighter remained in orbit, providing communication relay and extraction support for the ground team. His ship's sensors monitored all spacecraft. Within 3 light-years of New Texas system, Carlos would provide early warning if Imperial Navy forces approached the colony before Ghost completed his mission. The freighter captain also maintained contact with Earth Intelligence Services in case the operation required official support. Jake asked his father why the lights had gone out at the alien base on the hill. Sam said old equipment sometimes broke down when people did not maintain it properly. This explanation satisfied the boy's curiosity while technically describing what had happened to the Zarkan facility. Jake did not realize his father was responsible for the maintenance problems that were systematically destroying the alien occupation force. Lisa Brown infiltrated the base again during the confusion caused by the water system failure. She planted additional surveillance devices and gathered intelligence about the aliens' emergency protocols. The information revealed that General Vex Prime was considering evacuation if conditions continued deteriorating. This knowledge would help Ghost determine the optimal timing for his final confrontation with the enemy commander. The Zarkan forces implemented strict rationing for food, water, and ammunition after losing contact with their supply networks. Soldiers were ordered to conserve resources and prepare for extended siege conditions. Morale dropped even further as troops realized they might be trapped on New Texas for an indefinite period. Some aliens began discussing surrender or desertion. Despite the severe penalties for such actions under Imperial military law, Maria transmitted all gathered intelligence to secure servers in 3 different star systems using equipment hidden in her inspector office. The data included detailed records of Zarkan war crimes, evidence of treaty violations, and proof of illegal military activities on neutral colonial territory. If anything happened to Ghost's team, this information would ensure appropriate authorities could take action against the occupying forces. Tony Clark prepared shaped charges designed to breach the alien command bunker when Ghost decided to end the psychological phase of his operation. The explosives were hidden in locations that would allow rapid deployment when the time came for direct assault. Each device was carefully positioned to maximize structural damage while minimizing risk to any human prisoners the aliens might be holding. Ryan Hayes identified the optimal approach routes for aerial insertion if Ghost needed to extract his team quickly. The traffic controller had disabled automated defense systems and created false flight plans that would confuse any pursuing aircraft. His preparations would ensure the team could escape New Texas if the mission went badly or if Imperial reinforcements arrived unexpectedly. General Vex Prime received reports that human colonial authorities were demanding answers about his forces' recent activities. The administrator Patricia Wells had been contacted by regional government officials asking about unauthorized military operations and civilian complaints. The general realized his position was becoming untenable from both military and political perspectives. Someone was applying pressure through channels he could not control or even identify. Kate Murphy documented the psychological deterioration of Zarkan personnel for her medical reports. The evidence would support claims that the alien occupation force had become mentally unstable and dangerous to civilian populations. This documentation would justify any actions Earth authorities might take to remove the threat posed by the increasingly desperate enemy soldiers. Sam Morrison completed his final preparations in the garage, while Jake slept peacefully in his room. Tomorrow would bring the end of careful planning and the beginning of direct action. The Zarkan forces were isolated, demoralized, and running low on essential supplies. Their commander was making increasingly desperate decisions that revealed poor judgment. General Vex Prime made his final mistake at dawn on the 7th day. Desperate to regain control and force the invisible enemy into the open, he ordered his troops to begin executing civilian hostages. The general announced that 1 human would die every hour until the resistance fighters surrendered themselves. He would start with the boy whose father had signed those papers so quietly, so calmly. Jake Morrison would be the first to pay for this planet's defiance. Sam Morrison received this news while drinking coffee in his kitchen. The message came through Maria's communication network as Zarkan soldiers surrounded his house. He sat down, his cup very carefully, and looked at his sleeping son through the open bedroom door. The quiet maintenance technician who had lived peacefully on New Texas for 15 years ceased to exist in that moment. Ghost opened his eyes and saw the world through a soldier's vision once again. Jake woke to find alien troops breaking down his front door. The boy called for his father but received no answer. Sam Morrison was already gone, vanished like morning mist when the sun rises. The Zarkan soldiers found only a 12-year-old child in pajamas and a house that felt strangely empty despite all the furniture remaining in place. Something important had left this home, and the aliens could sense its absence even if they did not understand what it meant. Vex-Cole watched from the transport vehicle as they drove Jake toward the alien base. The sergeant had been released from medical supervision specifically for this operation because General Vex Prime wanted the soldier who had started this conflict to witness its resolution. Vex Skull's yellow eyes remained fixed on the human boy, but his mind saw shadows moving in broad daylight. The nightmares had followed him into the waking world and would not release their hold on his sanity. Ghost moved through New Texas colony like smoke given purpose. Citizens who glimpsed him from windows would later tell investigators they had seen nothing unusual, just tricks of light and shadow that might have been a person walking quickly between buildings. The legendary operative had returned to his natural element where death followed close behind and fear walked ahead to clear the path. The alien base's remaining defenses activated as Ghost approached the perimeter. Automated weapon systems tracked his movement but found no targets to engage. Electronic sensors detected thermal signatures that appeared and disappeared too quickly for computer analysis. Guard posts reported contacts that vanished when backup arrived to investigate. Ghost was everywhere and nowhere. A presence felt but never confirmed until too late. Maria Santos. BROADCAST live footage of the hostage situation to every communication network in 3-star systems. Her transmission included audio recordings of General Vex Prime's threats against civilian populations and video, evidence of Zarkan soldiers dragging a child from his home. The galaxy watched in real time as an alien military force violated every treaty governing colonial occupation procedures. Political pressure began building in capitals across human space. The first Zarkan to die was a sentry who never saw his killer approaching. Ghost materialized from shadows behind the guard post and ended the alien's life with silent efficiency. The body would not be discovered for another hour, enough time for Ghost to penetrate deeper into the compound. A message carved into the sentry's armor read simply, "This is what happens to those who threaten children." Ryan Hayes initiated aerial surveillance using civilian aircraft disguised as routine traffic control operations. His cameras provided Ghost with real-time intelligence about enemy positions throughout the base. The footage revealed that Jake was being held in the command bunker while General Vex Prime prepared for his execution. Broadcast. Ghost had perhaps 30 minutes before the aliens murdered his son on live video to demonstrate their power. Tony. Clark's explosive charges detonated in perfect sequence across the alien facility. The blasts were precisely timed to destroy communications equipment, disable weapon systems, and seal exit routes while leaving the command bunker intact. General Vex Prime found himself trapped in his own headquarters with failing life support and no way to contact his scattered forces. The hunter had become the prey in less than 60 seconds. Kate Murphy treated wounded Zarkan soldiers who streamed into the medical facility as Ghost's assault intensified. Each patient described encounters with a human who moved like liquid, death and struck faster than thought. Some spoke of seeing their own mortality reflected in cold blue eyes that promised judgment without mercy. The combat medic realized she was witnessing the birth of a new legend that would terrify alien species for generations. Danny White provided sniper support from his position in the hills, eliminating targets that threatened Ghost's advance through the base. Each shot was perfectly placed to disable rather than kill when possible, but the former Marine showed no hesitation when lethal force was required. His rifle spoke with quiet authority as alien soldiers discovered that their supposed technological superiority meant nothing against professional human warfare. Jake sat in the command bunker listening to sounds of battle echoing through the alien facility. The boy was not afraid because he understood his father was coming. Sam Morrison had promised that some lessons were worth learning no matter how peaceful you wanted your life to be. Jake was learning that sometimes quiet men possessed the most dangerous skills when circumstances demanded their use. Lisa Brown moved through the chaos of the collapsing base like a ghost within a ghost, gathering intelligence and eliminating stragglers who might threaten the mission. Her infiltration expertise allowed her to navigate alien architecture as easily as human buildings. She reached the command bunker's outer defenses just as Ghost began his final approach to rescue his son. General Vex Prime barricaded himself in the command center with his remaining guards and prepared to execute the human child on live broadcast. The alien commander believed this demonstration of ruthless determination would force the mysterious enemy to surrender. He did not understand that threatening Jake Morrison was the one action guaranteed to ensure his own destruction. Ghost had killed entire armies for lesser provocations. Vex Cole stood guard over Jake with shaking hands and haunted eyes. The sergeant who had struck a boy in anger now faced the consequences of that moment of casual cruelty. He could hear something moving in the corridors outside, something that made sounds like death walking on soft feet. The nightmares were becoming reality, and Vex Cole finally understood that he was not the hunter in this scenario. Ghost reached the command bunker as General Vex Prime began his broadcast to the galaxy. The alien general spoke about human arrogance and the price of resistance while holding a weapon to Jake's head. Ghost watched through hacked security cameras as his son looked directly into the transmission device and smiled slightly. The boy had recognized his father's handiwork in the destruction surrounding the base. The lights went out in the command center as Ghost cut the main power feeds. Emergency illumination cast strange shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. General Vex Prime shouted orders to guards who were already dead, killed so silently that their commander had not noticed their absence. Only Vex Cole remained alive in the room with the alien general and his human hostage. Ghost emerged from darkness, like judgment given physical form. His voice was soft when he spoke to Vex Cole in perfect Zarkan. "You struck my son. You drew his blood and terrorized him in the street. I am here to collect payment for that debt." The sergeant tried to raise his weapon, but his hands would not obey his commands. Fear had frozen his nervous system beyond recovery. Jake Morrison looked at his father and saw a stranger wearing a familiar face. This was not the quiet maintenance technician who had raised him with gentle words and patient instruction. This was something far more dangerous. A human weapon forged in battles across the galaxy and tempered by years of professional violence. The boy felt proud rather than afraid because this legendary soldier belonged to him. General Vex Prime attempted to negotiate using Jake as leverage, but Ghost simply smiled and began walking forward. The alien general fired his weapon at point blank range only to discover he was shooting at empty air. Ghost had moved faster than Zarkan reflexes could track, a speed that should have been impossible for any biological creature. The general's last thought was wonder at human physical capabilities he had never imagined. Vex Cole found his voice long enough to apologize for harming Jake before Ghost ended his life with clinical precision. The sergeant who had started this conflict with a moment of cruel impulse died, knowing that his actions had awakened something the galaxy would remember for centuries. Ghost collected his son and walked out of the ruined base as easily as he had entered. The surviving Zarkan forces evacuated New Texas within 6 hours of their general's death. They filed official reports claiming equipment failures and hostile environmental conditions had made their position untenable. No mention was made of human resistance activities or the legendary operative who had systematically destroyed their occupation force. Some knowledge was too dangerous to record in official documents. Jake Morrison returned to school the following week with a small scar on his cheek and stories he would never tell. His father resumed his job as a maintenance technician.